Baik, halo, welcome dan selamat datang, good afternoon, selamat siang kepada Bapak Ibu sekalian yang sudah bergabung bersama webinar kita pada siang yang indah ini. Selamat datang. Di Shield Virtual 2021 Cybersecurity and IM Online Seminar. Untuk webinar kita hari ini akan terasa sangat spesial karena ada dua tim dari ManageEngine langsung yang akan membawakan materi webinar kita. Ada Mr. Vivin dan Mr. Harish yang akan membawakan webinar kita pada siang ini. Jadi akan terasa sangat akan terasa langsung, tapi seluruh sesi yang dibawakan mereka tentunya akan dibawakan dalam bahasa Inggris. Baik, sebelum kita memulai materi webinar kita, izinkan saya berikan waktu sampai 5 menit saja untuk memberikan pesan-pesan dari sponsor. Selamat siang, salam kenal. Nama saya Roni Simatupang. Saya dari Prodata Sistem Teknologi, merupakan on behalf partner ManageEngine untuk Indonesia. Ini beberapa tim yang ada di belakang Prodata yang siap untuk membantu Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk solusi-solusi dari ManageEngine. Sekilas mengenai ManageEngine, ya. ManageEngine itu didirikan tahun 2020, namanya Advanced, sekarang dikeluarkan dengan Zoho Corporation. Pada dasarnya ada 3 core bisnis yang dimiliki saat ini. Yang pertama adalah Telekom Business, kemudian ManageEngine yang akan kita coba diskusikan hari ini, dan juga ada Zoho Cloud atau Zoho CRM atau Zoho SaaS, Software as a Service. Kemudian untuk ManageEngine sendiri memiliki lebih dari 90 produk yang bisa Bapak Ibu gunakan, sudah digunakan dari 3 juta IT users, kemudian sudah dipakai di 190 negara. Kalau kita bisa lihat di layar ada beberapa company yang sudah menggunakan ManageEngine hingga saat ini. Sementara untuk Prodata sendiri, kita berpartnership dengan ManageEngine sudah sejak lama, sejak tahun 2004. Kita sudah partner dengan ManageEngine, sampai saat ini kita ditunjuk sebagai on behalf ManageEngine di Indonesia. Tentunya sebagai on behalf ManageEngine Indonesia, kita wajib memiliki resource, didukung juga oleh support, konsultasi, training, sertifikasi dari ManageEngine. Ini beberapa company yang sudah menggunakan ManageEngine di Indonesia. Menurut data yang kami miliki, sudah ada 400 hingga 500 company yang sudah menggunakan ManageEngine hingga saat ini. Dan sebagai syarat untuk sebagai on behalf partner ManageEngine Indonesia, tentunya kita memiliki layanan ProCare atau local support, dan juga kita menyediakan layanan untuk enterprise market, di mana format atau struktur implementasi kita senantiasa kita perbaiki dari waktu ke waktu, hingga ke level managed service yang kita berikan untuk memberikan implementasi yang baik ke semua customer ManageEngine ini. Baik, untuk ManageEngine sendiri sebenarnya produknya cukup banyak. Kalau misalnya Bapak Ibu lihat bisa di browsing di internet, ya, cukup banyak. Tapi kita memberikan beberapa klasifikasi. Yang pertama itu adalah IT Operation Management. Di mana dalam IT Operation Management ini kita bisa memonitoring network dan server dengan OP Manager. Kemudian traffic bandwidth monitoring kita bisa lakukan dengan Network Analyzer. Sementara untuk server dan aplikasi kita bisa monitoring dengan Application Manager. Nah, dan dalam item ini kita terkenal dengan simple but powerful, ya, di mana kita 100% web based, agentless monitoring, kemudian multi vendor monitoring. It means kita tidak menuliskan brand-brand tertentu, as long as dia punya SNMP, itu biasanya kita bisa monitoring. Kemudian kita juga sudah bisa diinstal di atas Windows ataupun Linux. Kemudian kita juga punya solusi yang berhubungan dengan ITSM atau IT Service Management. Di ManageEngine kami kenal dengan Service Desk Plus, di mana dalam Service Desk Plus ini sudah komplit helpdesk ticketing. Kita integrasikan dengan sistem Asset Management yang sudah ready ITL versi yang terbaru atau versi 4. Nah, dalam Service Desk Plus Architecture itu seperti saya jelaskan di awal tadi, kita sudah complete solution di mana sistem IT helpdesk itu sudah didukung dengan Asset Management dan juga ITL modul tadi. Sementara untuk desktop, kita punya solusi yang berhubungan dengan desktop dan mobile device management. ManageEngine kita kenal desktop sentral, Atau untuk MDM-nya ada Mobile Device Manager Plus. Di dalam desktop sentral ini kita bisa memanage secara 100% untuk seluruh desktop yang ada di network kita. Dari PC yang berhubungan dengan baik PC itu Windows, Mac, ataupun Linux. Untuk mobile device kita support untuk Windows Phone, Android, dan juga iOS. Kita bisa kontrol 100%, kita bisa manage mereka, patching, software development, dan lain-lain. Sementara untuk Active Directory Management, kita ada beberapa produk yang mungkin nanti akan kita gali sedikit lebih dalam bersama Pak Vivin dan Harish nanti di solusi Active Directory ini. Bagaimana cara kita memanage Active Directory kita secara lebih mudah, kemudian mengaudit seluruh aktivitas yang ada di Active Directory kita hingga ke level file server dan member server mungkin, sampai ke level reset password secara mandiri oleh user-user. Nanti kita akan bahas lebih dalam lagi mengenai Active Directory ini. Kita juga punya modul-modul yang berhubungan dengan IT Security Management. Kita punya solusi CM dan juga Event Log Analyzer, mana kita bisa mengkolek seluruh log-log yang ada di seluruh perangkat atau log resource yang ada di network kita, sehingga kita bisa mengidentifikasi dan juga mengaudit seluruh aktivitas yang ada baik di server, aplikasi, ataupun network device yang kita miliki saat ini. Dan terakhir kita punya solusi yang berhubungan dengan BI, Business Intelligence, itu namanya Analytics Plus, mana kita bisa meng-compile dan mengintegrasikan seluruh resource aplikasi yang kita miliki, baik ManageEngine ataupun non-ManageEngine, kita integrasikan dengan alat Analytics Plus untuk memunculkan sebuah report yang lebih mudah dibaca dan lebih mudah dimengerti. Baik, sekian sedikit mengenai ManageEngine, Prodata, dan juga beberapa produk yang ada di ManageEngine. Terima kasih atas perhatian Bapak Ibu sekalian. Kita akan memulai sesi webinar kita yang dimulai dengan dari Pak Vivin. Nanti jika ada pertanyaan yang berhubungan dengan materi webinar kita kali ini, nanti bisa langsung lampirkan di modul chat yang ada di layar Bapak Ibu sekalian. Terima kasih atas waktunya. Thank you, everybody. Now we will start the webinar. Start with Pak Vivin. Go ahead, Vivin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roni. Thank you very much for the introduction. So let me quickly share my screen. Just give me one quick second. All right. I hope all of you can see my screen and my voice is okay. I just need a thumbs up. Oh, okay, good. All right. Even before we proceed for the session, I would like to cut the video feed now because I don't want the video feed to be eating up so much of my bandwidth. So soon after my session, I have my good friend and colleague Harish. Hi Harish. So Harish will be talking about IT security and I will be talking about identity and access management. So just wait for a couple of seconds. So I'll cut the video feed and then we'll start the session. All right. I hope my voice is still loud and clear. Let's get started with the session. First things first, thank you very much for setting some time apart amidst your busy schedule. I know Indonesia as a country is going through the pandemic. So I just hope and pray that things ease up a bit there for you. So just hold on for a couple of weeks and things will get all right. I just wanted to pass this message on. Okay. So as I mentioned, we have two sessions today. One is on identity and access management, and the second one is going to be on IT security, right? Now, my name is Vivin Satyan. I have been with ManageEngine for more than 9 years now. So I do two things as a technology consultant. One is I talk about products and I also talk about technology, okay? Now, in today's session, for the next 30 to 40 minutes, we will be talking about identity management, okay? Now, initially, the whole idea of identity management was just authentication and authorization. Now, authentication is understanding who is who. Authorization is after understanding who is who, you'll have to let people access certain resources within your infrastructure. You'll have to restrict them access to certain resources, right? So allowing or denying users access to resources is what is authorization, right? Now, the whole idea of identity and access management was just these two concepts. But over these years, what has happened is Identity and access management has now included or has now onboarded a variety of functions. Let me give you some of the core functions. For example, when a new employee is recruited to an organization, you'll have to create an account for that employee. Okay, that is the onboarding phase. Now, for an effective onboarding or user management experience, your IAM software should be able to integrate with a variety of business applications through API integration. Okay, this is also one of the core parameters while you actually procure an IAM solution. How good is your IAM solution in talking to other business applications? Number 3 is its core function. What are the authentication techniques that are available in my IAM solution, right? Is it just username and password, or TOTP, biometrics, smart card authentication? What are the authentication factors that my IAM solution support? Number 4 is self-service. If my users forget their passwords, or if they get their accounts locked out, okay, so how are they going to perform these operations on a self-service basis, okay, thereby reducing the number of help desk calls and tickets? 5th function is offboarding. Similar to onboarding, when the employee, when the employee leaves the organization, the account needs to be handled. All the permissions that you have given to the user has to be revoked. So that's an offboarding experience. So how effective is going to be the offboarding experience when you have an IAM solution? Okay, that is again one of the key parameters while choosing an IAM solution. Okay, and the 6th function is delegation. Okay, delegation is something like you as an administrator want your subordinate to generate reports, or you want them to manage licenses of your users. Okay, so you as an administrator delegate some of the actions to them. Okay, so how effective is that delegation? That's the whole idea. And the 7th topic, or the 7th parameter when it comes to an IAM solution, is analytics, right? And my good friend Harish is going to be talking about analytics in his session. So analytics, there are 2 types of analytics. One is general analytics. Number 2 is risk-based analytics. Okay, so Harish will be talking more about risk-based analytics in his session. Okay, so I just want you to pay close attention to the sessions. All right, so let's get started here. The agenda is going to be pretty simple. So what I'm going to show you now is I am going to show you how an IAM solution from ManageEngine, namely AD360, is going to help you perform all the all the functions that I just discussed. Okay, we are going to take a look at IAM and then see how IAM helps us in standardizing the user onboarding process, in the sense, how are we going to create users successfully? How are we going to create users in multiple platforms? Because companies don't just have Active Directory anymore. They have Active Directory, they have Exchange, they have Microsoft 365. So you need to create an account in all these technology platforms. So we're going to take a look at the user onboarding experience from the IAM perspective. Number 2 is, how do you offboard users when the employees leave the organization? How is an IAM solution going to help you handle that? Number 3 is all about delegation. And I'm going to be talking about a specific concept of delegation. And that is, so instead of actually delegating control or authority, how are we going to delegate, just actions to other users? Okay. Number 4 is all about authentication. Okay. So you have your username and password. That is level 1 of authentication. The second level of authentication would be, let's say, a TOTP, or a one-time password sent to your mobile number, or it could be a smart card authentication, RSA-based authentication. So how are we going to secure layer 1 and layer 2 of authentication is what we're going to be focusing on points 4 and 5. Okay. So user onboarding, user offboarding, delegation, and how do we strengthen authentication is going to be what we're going to be discussing over the next 30 minutes. Okay. All right. Now for that, I am going to be using a solution from ManageEngine called AD360. Okay, so I'm going to show you how AD360 from ManageEngine is going to help you do all these functions that you see on the screen. Okay, number one, onboarding users. The first function that I'd like to discuss with you is onboarding users. And whenever you're trying to create an account, okay, be it an Active Directory account, or let's say a Microsoft 365 account, or you're trying to create an Exchange mailbox for the user, okay, for the first time, you would want to have a multi-platform onboarding experience. In that sense, what do I mean is, when you're trying to create an account, you would want that account to be present in as many technology platforms as possible. It's not like you create an account here, and then you go to Exchange server, open the EMC, create a mailbox there, open up your G Suite console, create an account here, and then you go to the admin portal and you create an account here. So we are not talking about 4 or 5 different portals. We're just talking about one application that can help you do user creation in all these technology platforms. Okay. And let me quickly introduce you to the framework that actually helps you do that. Okay. Let me quickly jump to my lab and show you the actual template so that we understand this better. Okay. Now, as you can see on the screen, this is AD Manager Plus. Okay. Now, please hear me out right. AD Manager Plus is just one of the many modules that you have in AD 360. Okay. Let me again repeat. I was talking about, AD 360, right? So AD Manager Plus is just one module of AD 360. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the management tab of AD Manager Plus, and I'm going to show you how the template helps you in creating user accounts in multiple technology platforms, namely Active Directory, Microsoft 365, Exchange, and G Suite. Okay. So I open up user creation templates here, right? So I open up user creation templates, and I have already created a template for you because I have 3 important concepts to explain in a template. Okay. Now, first, let me show you a regular template. Okay. So I just go to create a new template here. Okay. And when you go to create a new template, you get a fresh template. Okay. So you as an administrator can fill in all the values that you want. The values in the general tab, the account tab. The account tab is where you type the user's password information, the groups that the user should be a member of. And then you have the contact tab. The contact tab is for the contact information of the employee. Okay. The home, phone number, mobile phone number, the title, department, and everything. So you have a tab for every parameter that you can think of. Okay. So this is a regular template. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain 3 features here that you see on the screen: copy user attributes, enable drag and drop, and creation rules. And I'm going to show you how these 3 features make this template all the more powerful. Okay. So let's now go back to the template that I've already created so that I'll be able to explain some concepts to you. Okay. Now I've already created a template and I've named it HR-user creation template. Now, if you take a closer look at this template, okay, you will see that the general tab alone is highlighted, whereas the account, contact, exchange, remote mailbox, all of these are grayed out. Okay. And inside the general tab, you have first name, last name, and title field highlighted, whereas the rest of the fields are grayed out. Okay. You know why? Because this template is going to be used not by the administrators. This is going to be used by my HR. Okay. So when the HR is using this template, I don't want them to see all the fields here because it is not relevant for them. I just want them to be able to see a simple form, and that form will only have first name, last name, and title. Okay. Now, how do I do that? What about the other fields then? Okay. So if I just type the first name, last name, and title, and I hit create as a HR, will the account be created in AD, Exchange, and Office 365? The answer is yes. Okay. And I'm going to show you exactly how this is done. Okay. So what I do here is, as an administrator, when I'm actually designing a template for the HR, the first feature that I use here is creation rules. Okay. So what I do here is, when I go to creation rules, I create any number of rules that I want. Okay, I just go to add rule and I create any number of rules that I want. Okay, and every rule that you see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 rules here. And every rule works based on a condition. Okay, rule number 1 is if the technician is going to be an IT technician account. If the new employee that I have recruited to my office, if it's an IT technician, then what is the rules condition? If it's an IT admin, what's the rules condition? If it's a database administrator, I have different set of rules. If it's a procurement user, so it's going to be there's going to be a different set of rules. Okay, so let me explain the rules here. So when I actually open up the IT technician account, the condition is the title of that newly recruited employee. If it's going to be IT technician, then I want certain values to be automatically assigned, auto-assigned for this user account, okay? Such as their description, the groups, the city, the department, the street address, office, country, everything. I want all these, even the manager, I want them to be auto-populated. Everything is based on this title, okay? Now, this is for IT technician. What if it's an IT admin? Well, if the title is going to be IT admin, this is another rule, then I want different sets of values to be assigned to that IT admin, okay? So every user department or every user account that I create, based on their job titles, they will be assigned different values, okay? That is the whole idea of creation rules here, okay? I hope we got this point clear. So creation rules is all about logic, okay? So if the HR is going to select the title as help desk technician, there's going to be a different set of values. If it is going to be HR manager, there's going to be a different set of values. If it is IT admin Spain, the user will be getting a different set of values. So all the HR has to do is just type the first name of the new employee, last name of the new employee, and select the right title or the relevant title here. You can add or remove any number of titles as you want, okay? Manager, manager, HR. So based on the titles that the HR selects, the creation rules will be applied and the user account will be created in Active Directory, in Exchange, in Office 365, and even in G Suite. Okay, so that's creation rules here. Now coming to the second feature, which is enable drag and drop. Okay, now I told you that the whole layout, when you actually give this form to the HR should only be able to see 3 fields, right? And the HR should not be able to see all of the fields because it is not relevant to the HR. So how do you make certain fields visible and how do you make certain fields hidden from the HR's view? Well, that is when you use enable drag and drop. So you go to enable drag and drop, okay? And you can completely customize this layout, okay? So you can add a field, or if you feel that you don't need the field, okay? So I've just added employee ID, and if you feel that you don't need employee ID here, you simply delete the field, okay? So now the employee ID field is back here in what we call the field tray. So for every tab, you can add or remove or rename fields and even make it mandatory. Okay, so this is how you can customize this layout using enable drag and drop functionality. Okay, and copy user attributes is very simple. So if you want to build a template from scratch, and if you already have a user, okay, let's say you're trying to create a template for the IT department and you already have an IT user, you can simply copy the IT user's property and paste it in this template. Okay, that makes your job of creating templates a lot easier. Okay, so I hope we now have clear understanding of the 3 features. Creation rules is logic, enable drag and drop is for customization, copy user attributes is for copying a target user's property. Right? So now I'm going to show you how this template is going to be, how this template looks from the HR's standpoint. Okay, so when the HR uses this template, according to our design, the HR should only be able to see the first name, last name, and the title field. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do exactly that. Okay, so I'm going to sign out. Okay, I've now logged in as the admin, so I'm going to sign out. And I am going to log into AD Manager Plus as the HR, okay? HR, and I am going to type the password. Please note that this is the Windows username and password of this HR user, okay? So the HR now logs into AD Manager Plus. And let us assume that today morning I recruited a new employee to my office, and now the HR has to create an account for the newly recruited employee. Okay, so the HR now logs into AD Manager Plus. The HR goes to create a single user. Okay, and when the HR goes to create a single user, the template that we had auto-assigned is right there. Okay, HR-user creation is right there. Even if the HR tries to select another template, no other templates will be listed here as per definition. Okay, and now let us see whether the user is whether the HR is able to create new user accounts. Okay, just by logging into just by logging into AD Manager. Okay, the HR is not logging into a server. The HR is not using an admin center. The HR is just, okay. So the first name of the user is Roni, and the last name, let's say, Techie, okay. So the first name is Roni and the last name is Techie. And now out of all the titles that are available, since this is going to be a technician account, okay, I'm going to select the title as IT technician, okay. So first name Roni, last name Techie, and the title is IT technician. The title is mandatory so that the HR will not be able to skip the process. Okay. Please note I've still logged into the application as the HR. Okay. So I hit create. Okay. Successfully created the user. Roni Techie is created, and the account is created in the India OU. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to open up Active Directory. Okay. This is Active Directory, and I'm going to the India OU here. Okay. And let us see whether we have the user Roni Techie created. Okay, so I just do a quick refresh. Okay, I do a quick refresh and I have Roni Techie here. And if I open up the user's property, I just don't have the first name, last name, and the title, but I have all the properties that I want populated for the user, including the office address and also the group membership of the account. Okay, but all the HR had typed is the first name, last name, and title. But if you take a look at the user's property here, every attribute is populated. Now, this is exactly the power of the template, the user creation template that I showed you. So let me make it very clear. The user creation template can help the administrators create accounts in any department for any job role. It can also help the HR create accounts with minimal information, such as the first name, last name, and title. Okay, the HR need not know what is the password. The HR need not know what is the Office 365 license. All they have to do is just select the title. So based on the title that they select, the right license, the right group membership, the right access levels will be given to the users, and the user accounts will be readily created in all the platforms. Okay. So this is the benefit of using AD Manager Plus's template. Okay, so I'm going to quickly sign out, and I'm going to now show you another feature here. So far we have talked about onboarding users. Okay, and I've explained the 3 important features in the template. Now I'm going to show you the concept of delegation and how it is done. Okay, so just give me a quick second here. I'm now going to log into AD Manager Plus as the admin. Okay. All right, let me do this again. I'm now logging into AD Manager Plus as the admin. So I've already showed you 2 things. I've showed you what are the core features in the template, and I've also showed you how can you map this template to your HR so that the HR can create users just by typing in basic information like first name, last name, and the title of the user. Okay. Now I'm going to introduce you to the concept of delegation. Okay. Now, what I've done here is, so I have this user called the HR user, okay? Now, this user does not have any rights in my Active Directory or Office 365 or Exchange, okay? This is a regular, this is a normal HR account. And if you take a look at the permissions in the form of group membership, the HR is just part of domain users, that's it, okay? But you just saw the HR account logging into AD Manager Plus, and the same HR account created this user called Roni Tech, right? Without logging into Active Directory. Now, how did this happen? Well, what I've done here is I go to Delegation and I have added HR as a technician of AD Manager Plus, okay? And I have given this HR a role, and I've also mapped a template. I'll explain what is a role and I'll show you how to map a template, okay? Now, let me make it very clear. So I am not giving the HR direct access to my Active Directory. I'm not giving them direct access to Exchange or Office 365. All I'm doing is I've added them as technicians and I've given them a role called the HR role inside of AD Manager Plus, okay? Now let me talk about roles here. Now roles are nothing but actions that you can delegate to other users. Other users can be administrators, they can be HR, they can be line managers, they can even be your IT technicians, okay? So you can create a new role and then select the actions that you want to map. But let me actually open the HR role that I just created, okay? So the HR role, when the role opens up, you will be able to see a bunch of checkboxes. Every checkbox corresponds to an action, okay? So for example, create single user as an action and you have a checkbox for that. Similarly, for every action, you would have a corresponding checkbox here, okay? The actions don't just limit themselves to Active Directory. It also extends to GPO management, reporting, administration, and even Office 365, okay? So it all depends on what action do you want to enable in this role. That's the whole idea here. Now, I have just selected only one checkbox, which is create a single user for my HR, okay? No reports. We have more than 200 reports here. Reports on users, reports on passwords, reports on groups, okay? So no reports, no administration capabilities, nothing related to Office 365 reporting, and no ability to backup or recovery. Okay. However, you can give a user the ability to do all this. Okay. But for the HR, it's just creates a single user. Okay. Now, after creating a role, what you should be doing is you simply go to add new technician and then add the HR as a part of AD Manager Plus. Okay. And simply map the role. It is as simple as that. Okay. So the domain that we are working on is vcorp.com, because vcorp.com is where the HR is. And by default, I have given the HR the ability to create users in all OUs. If you want, you can even restrict the HR's access to one or maybe two OUs, whichever you seem fit, okay? And then we'll have to select a role, okay? So you can pick and choose from the built-in roles, or you can select the role that you created. HR role is something that I created, okay? I've just selected that role, okay? And now that this role is going to be creating users, you should obviously be assigning a template, right? So when you go to the template section, the pop-up will show you all the templates that you have. We have close to 50 templates. I don't want the HR to be able to see or use those 50 templates. I want the template to be used, the HR to be using one specific template, which is HR-user creation. And how do I make this template as default? Well, you see a small checkbox here. Okay, the small checkbox reads set as default, which means I have selected only one template, and that will be the default template for the HR account. Now, if you want a few other templates to be visible for your HR, all you need to do is just select the templates, okay? So I hope we are clear with the concept of delegation here, okay? Delegation is pretty simple. All you need to do, step number 1 is create a role. A role can be any action. Step number 2 is after creating a role, you'll have to actually add the technician as a part of AD Manager Plus and then assign the role. Okay. You'll even be able to audit the actions done by your technician. For example, okay, the HR technician just created a user called Roni Techie, right? And the action was done, let's say 5 or 10 minutes ago. So let's see whether the audit report section captures all that. Okay, so the audit report section, I select the help as technician here. So the technician that we are talking about is the HR user. And I would like to audit the action done by the HR in the last 1 hour. Okay, when I hit go, it says the HR user has created a single user. Okay, and the name of the user is Roni Tech, and you have the timestamp of the action. And the user was successfully created. And if you want to know the details, you just hit the details link and you get complete information about the user. So Roni Techie was created by the HR, and these are the properties of the account. Okay, so this is what we call as effective onboarding experience. Okay, so you create a user, or your HR creates a user in Active Directory, in Exchange, in Office 365, just by logging into AD Manager Plus. So you actually reduce the number of people who have access to your service. That is what we call as effective delegation. Okay, the HR's right in Active Directory does not change. The HR is still part of, if you open up the HR's property, the HR is still part of Domain Users, but the HR through AD Manager Plus is now able to create accounts and do the tasks that you want them to do. Okay. The third action, so the first one was all about templates, second one was all about delegation. Now I'm going to be talking about automation. Okay, because we get a lot of questions, can this application automate the process of user creation, user deletion, or finding out inactive users or inactive computers automatically? Okay, not manually, but automatically. One thing that I'd like to say is AD Manager Plus can manually create accounts, manage accounts, but it can also automatically do that. Okay, so if you go to create a new automation, okay, now we have 4 categories of automation: user, computer, group, and contact. Let's talk about user automation here. You can pick and choose any task that you want that's to be automated. For example, okay, you can automate the process of creating users. So let's say you want 3 users to be created next Monday, okay, at 10 o'clock. You simply set an automation saying create users, and then give the input. It can be a CSV file, and then you tell the application when to create those accounts. The accounts will be created. Okay, I hope I have made my point clear here. Okay, so this is one functionality here. So you simply select the task that you want to automate. You select the source. The source can be a CSV file. It can be an SQL server, Oracle database, or it can be any one of these business applications that you're using. Okay, so the application has the ability to integrate with a variety of business tools so that it can get input and then automate the tasks that you want. Okay, you can create users automatically, modify users, reset their password. If you just scroll down, you get a list of actions that you can pick and choose from. Okay, for example, let's say an employee leaves the organization and the employee has been consuming an Office 365 license. You can automatically remove the license from the user who has just left the organization, okay, through automation. Okay, so you can pick and choose the automation task and just select the source and select the frequency of automation, whether you want the automation to happen daily, weekly, monthly, and the application will do it for you. And after every action takes place, irrespective of the outcome, whether it's a success or a failure, you simply can enable notification So you get an SMS as well as an email notification. Okay, so if the automation has created 5 users, you want an SMS notification to be sent as soon as the task is completed. The notification template will help you do that. Okay, so we are talking about a complete automation procedure here for your AD, Exchange, and Office 365. Okay, now it's time for me to switch to a different topic altogether. Okay, we are now going to be talking about authentication here. Okay, so far we've discussed about 3 topics. Number 1 is we talked about templates and how do you use the templates for creating accounts. Number 2, we discussed about how do you actually delegate an action to other user. Number 3, we discussed about automation. Okay, I really hope that we are clear with all these 3 concepts, and if you have questions, please make use of the chat box and keep asking your questions. Okay, I'm going to spend just 5 more minutes here and talk about authentication real quick. Okay, so let me do something here. Now that most of us are still working from our homes, and it looks like it's going to be continuing for some more weeks at least. So what we have to do now is the number 1 thing that we'll have to safeguard is your users' credentials. Okay, because the users' credentials are basically the key to accessing the data in your organization. So if someone gets hold of the username and password of maybe your admin accounts or your privileged users, what that means is they get access to your entire information repository. Okay, so in 2021, if you are going to be rethinking your password strategy or your authentication strategy, you'll have to have 3 things in mind. Number 1 is you'll have to secure remote logon attempts. Okay, because people are working from home, which is people are working remotely. So you'll have to secure their local and remote login attempts. Okay, not just to their computers, not just to their computer back in office, but also to servers. Okay, because you will have to have a measure, or you'll have to have a way by which you actually identify who's trying to log in and access what. Number 2, when you are going to define a password policy or an authentication mechanism that you're trying to implement, please see that the policy actually helps you defend against credential-based attacks. Okay, even yesterday there was a ransomware attack, and a part of that ransomware attack had to do with a weak credential. Okay, so there was an attack in almost 12 countries by the same group, and part of that attack was because of a weak credential. Okay, so you'll have to defend your usernames and passwords against common credential-based attacks. Number 3, depending on the regulatory compliance that your country or region has to follow, you will have to define your password parameters accordingly. Okay, it can be GDPR, HIPAA, or any compliance that you see here. So 3 tips or 3 items that you should be focusing on in order to secure your users' credentials. You'll have to think about a mechanism by which you secure remote logons. You'll have to think about a way by which the usernames and passwords do not fall for credential-based attacks. And the password policy that you set should also be, following regular should be abiding by the rules of regulatory bodies, okay, depending on the region or the country that you are in. And AD 360 again has another module which will help you, help you save or help you secure your users' credentials in 2 stages. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about 2 stages of securing user credential. Number 1, you'll have to secure your user's password or strengthen your user's password. Okay, that is layer 1 of security. Layer 2 of security is after strengthening your user's password policy, you will also have to think about a multi-factor authentication technique that you are going to impose to your users. Okay, now AD 360 can help you in these 2 parameters. Okay, Let me quickly show you AD 360 here. Now, AD Self-Service Plus is another module of AD 360. So AD Manager Plus is one module, which will help you with user creation, automation, delegation, reporting, and all that. AD Self-Service Plus is a different module altogether. Okay. Now I'm going to show you two ways by which AD 360 or AD Self-Service can help you secure your user's credential. Let's focus on layer one. Layer one is all about password security or strengthening your existing passwords. Okay. Now, I kindly request the administrators listening to this session to pay attention to these two layers of user credentials. Okay. So how do you strengthen your passwords? Layer two is how do you apply a multi-factor authentication technique that is based on a certain logic. Okay. So I go to configuration here, and I go to password policy enforcer. Okay, this is layer one of security. Okay, so layer one of security is all about strengthening passwords. Okay, now for example, we have 4 types of restrictions that you can impose on a password. Okay, one is character-based restriction. Number 2 is repetition-based restriction, pattern-based, and length-based restriction. Now these restrictions will help you in actually defending against credential-based attacks. So point 2 is taken care of here. Okay, so let me repeat: repetitions based on characters. Restrictions based on characters, restrictions based on repetition, so that you disallow users from using the same password. Restrictions based on pattern. So let's say you don't want your users to be using, let's say, QWERTY. 1 2 3 4 or password at 1 2 3 4 5 as their passwords. You can very well define the patterns that you don't want them to use, and you can actually help them strengthen their passwords. Okay, so 4 different types of restrictions that you can impose on passwords. And the best part about this is everything is bundled as a policy here. Okay, and you can map this policy to any user in your infrastructure. You can map this maybe based on, map this password policy based on their job description. Okay, so you can create a password policy and map this policy just for your administrators. Okay, and maybe create another policy and map it just for your regular users. Okay, and create another password policy with different types of restrictions here and map it for your contract employees. Okay, so we are securing level 1 using something called password policy enforcer. Okay, and it's not like you'll have to have one policy and then map it for all your users. We are talking about job description or title based or role based policy, password policy strengthening here. Okay, so layer 1 is taken care of. Layer 2 is multi-factor authentication. Okay, this is layer 2. How do you secure your user's credential? So we have now talked about layer 1 of credential security. So layer 2 of credential security is by enabling or enforcing multi-factor authentication. And just to let you know, in order to secure the layer 2 of your user's credential, AD Self-Service gives you at least 17 different authentication techniques that you can pick and choose from, including the traditional security question and answers. Okay, so you have security question and answers, email verification, all this is for multi-factor authentication, right? So you can choose just 1 or 2 or 3 or how many levels you want, depending on the level of security that you would like to impose. Okay, so we have at least 17 different types of authentication techniques, including TOTP and QR code based authentication. Okay, so let me give you an example here. You have 2 groups of employees. Group 1 is your regular users. Group 2 is your administrators. For your regular users, you can maybe have SMS based verification. So after they type in their username and password, which is strengthened using the password policy enforcer, they will then have to overcome the challenge of SMS verification, your regular users. Okay, Now, let's say your administrators are trying to log on to the servers. Okay, when the administrators are trying to log on to the servers, apart from SMS verification, you also want, let's say, RSA Secure ID to be enabled for additional security. You can create another policy with the technique, the authentication technique that you deem fit. Okay, this is for logging in, all right? But multi-factor authentication is not just required for logging in. So what if your employees are resetting their password or unlocking their account? Don't they need a multi-factor check there? Yes. So the multi-factor authentication setup for password reset and account unlock is also possible using AD self-service. So multi-factor authentication at the time of login is taken care of. At the time of reset password or unlocking account is also taken care of. Okay. So what about your endpoints? How do we secure your endpoints then? Okay. So when your users are trying to log into their Windows laptop or Mac laptop or Linux operating system installed laptop, okay, and you can enable MFA there, thereby you're securing their endpoints as well. Okay. What if they are working from home and they connect to Office via VPN? How do you secure VPN access? Well, you can enable MFA for VPN login as well. And again, you can pick and choose the authenticators from the, from the list of authenticators that are already available. So let me make it very clear here. We have discussed just 2 points. Point number 1 is strengthening the user passwords using various restrictions here. Point number 2 is strengthening the second layer of authentication using different MFA techniques. Okay, and you can pick and choose the level of MFA techniques, whether it's going to be 1 technique or 2 or 3, depending on their job roles and depending on the resources or data that they're going to access when they are in your organization. Okay, and everything is again mapped to a policy, and you can apply this policy for all your users, or you can apply this policy for a set of users depending on your requirement. Okay. So this is the benefit of AD self-service when it comes to strengthening your, your credentials. The last item that I'd like to discuss before ending this session is your users in your office will be using a variety of business applications, right? So they'll be using IT management tools. They'll be using a CRM for lead follow-up. They'll be using HR management tools, messaging applications, analytic tools for report, and all kinds of tools, right? So now that you have secured level 1 and level 2 of authentication using passwords and MFA, you can also enable single sign-on for your users for a variety of business applications that you see on the screen. Okay, so let's say your users are using any one of these applications that you're seeing on the screen. We have close to 119 applications that we support for single sign-on. Okay, so instead of your users typing in their username and password every time they are trying to access any one of these applications, if you enable single sign-on through AD self-service, they will get one-click access to all these applications or to any of these applications that you're seeing on the screen. So we can enable one-click access to Office 365, GoToMeeting, even Azure portals, and a lot of other HR tools as well. Okay, so 3 things: strengthening your passwords, strengthening your second level of authentication, and enabling single sign-on. So these 3 are the core features of AD Self-Service Plus. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick recap of what we saw here. Okay, so AD 360 can help you onboard users. It can also talk to other business applications. It can help you strengthen the authentication process because we have 2 levels of strengthening here. And then it can also help your end users do self-service actions in a very controlled manner. It can help you offboard users and delegate actions to your HR, to your contract employees, so that they don't get direct access to servers. Okay. Now it's time for us to talk about the analytics part. And my good friend and colleague, Harish, is waiting on the line to talk about risk-based analytics and what are the important items that you should be checking when you have a log management system in your office. Okay, so we have a quick, a poll to be launched. This poll, I'm just trying to understand what is your priority when it comes to IAM. So I kindly request Karthik to launch the poll here. So you'll be seeing a quick poll. Please answer the poll. It's just to understand what your IAM position is. Based on that, we'll be able to give you resources or share with you resources soon after the session is over. Okay, I'm now going to stop the screen and I'm going to allow control to Harish. So just give me one quick. Harish, the stage is all.
Thank you so much, Vivin. Hello, everyone. Let me quickly share my screen. And I assume that you all can see my screen and hear me okay. Just wanted to ensure that I don't talk to myself. Fantastic. I've been given the green signal, but with due course, if any of you are experiencing any problem in terms of seeing my screen or hearing me, okay, just please leave a comment on the chat window and we will do what we can to ensure that you have a seamless experience. All right. So now what do I have in store for you? Thanks, Roni, for that. We're going to switch gears and we're going to focus on cybersecurity. But before I actually jump into the topic, I just wanted to wish you all well. And Vivin did mention, Roni and Kanmoy did tell us the information that right now the Delta wave of the coronavirus is hitting your nation hard. So I wish you all well and hope we all come out of this pandemic nice and strong. So please take care of yourself, right? And on that note, I am going to go ahead and kickstart my talk. Warning cyber attacks ahead. What's your cybersecurity strategy? Now, Vivin did talk about IAM, identity access, and how to go about building a seamless IAM strategy, because that is the initial fulcrum of any organization. If there is an article which says if you have an amazing IAM strategy, then about 50% of the cyber attacks can be brought down. Seamless entry, exits with zero trust, giving them just enough access and everything. When it's audited, you can bring down the cyber attacks that could be possibly coming your way. All right. So what I'm going to talk about today is going to be problem-based solution approach. When I say problem-based solution approach, there are going to be some takeaways. It's just not outright product positioning. Like Vivin mentioned, problem-based solution and how our solutions help you. That's exactly the pattern that I'm going to follow as well. I'm going to give you use cases, pointers, and you might be using other solutions, but all I want to focus on my talk is the questions that I have. If you have answers for that, fantastic. But please don't stop there, because cyber attacks can come from nook and corner. It could be from within the organization. It could be away from the organization, or it could be by a simple email. And the attack could have not been planned for you at all, but a simple click would have actually got the hold of your organization, and then slowly they get hold of your data, they move lateral, and they crawl to the deepest part of the network. So that's exactly where I'm going to start. My name is Harish Shekhar, and I usually go by the name Harry. I have Roni, the Prodata team have been kind enough to have me in their speaking slot, and Vivin and me have traveled and pleasant memories, and I wish we all can do that in the near future. So I usually go by the name Harry, and anything that I show, demonstrate, talk about, please drop me an email, harry@manageengine.com, and I will be more than happy to have that addressed, to take the conversation forward or share those resources and collateral with you all. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and put in a slide just to drive home the humor. In an organization, the difficulty of being an administrator or an IT security professional is always high. The administrators are pressed for time. They are understaffed. They look at a lot of things. And on top of it all, the administrators will be educating people on what to do, what not to do, but people hardly listen. So on this specific image that I have, this is one of our content that we wrote, and I brought it again back because right now the phishing attacks are gaining precedence. They are taking the world by storm, and that's the gateway to hold your organization under ransom. So any form of attacks. So it all starts with a click. And of course, every organization has a character like know-it-all Johnny, just propagates the message of IT security, but unfortunately, they would be doing the damage. They would be clicking on malicious files. They would be clicking on any specific malware. So that is what I am after, as the simplest of mistakes can morph into a full-scale security breach. Now, I just have a survey link, which Karthik will be posting on the chat window right now. And what does this mean is it's a survey which focuses only on Active Directory security. There is no product positioning there. It is basically to understand how well you have understood Active Directory. Is it easy to get your way around of Active Directory? How is it security hardened? What do you do? Do you understand PowerShell? Do you know PowerShell is being weaponized? There are about 14 to 15 questions. All are object oriented, but I just wanted you all to please take a minute or two, post the talk. You can just open up the link in a separate tab and get to it when you have time, because that is very, very important. And you will be alarmed at the response that people share with me. And this is just to say that IT security across the globe is the same. It is difficult to maintain your organization security. You might be speaking different language. Anybody might be speaking different language, but the geography around IT security is always the same. It is difficult to maintain organizational security. Again, to kickstart my talk, the simplest of mistakes can morph into a full-scale security breach. And of course, just to reiterate one more time, if you could please share your feedback about that survey, that will be greatly beneficial, just to drive home the message on Active Directory security and its importance. Vivin did ask questions. Many of you did mention about Active Directory, the way to go about. From there, I understood that Active Directory is the heartbeat for many of you. And it is at some point of time when the shift happens between the on-prem and cloud, people do tend to take it lightly. And that's exactly why I created that survey. So I'm looking forward to your responses as well. All right. So this is the Active Directory security assessment. That is the survey link. The deck will reach out to you all along with the video, so you can pass it to the respective team in case if you want the right person to address this survey. Yes, once the deck reaches you all, just please share this. And the whole idea about this as a community, how can we safeguard Active Directory? How can we understand Active Directory better? Because still 90% of the organization trust Active Directory for authentication and authorization. And for that, it needs to be given the same limelight which was used before, or many organizations didn't have Active Directory in their cybersecurity strategy. So that alarmed me. And that was also another reason why I brought this assessment on board. So I'm looking forward to your responses. All right. Different ways to steal user credentials. So I will be simulating few attacks. So please stick around. But the point of me driving in this specific slide is attackers are after user credentials. That's the easiest gateway to crack open an organization. How? As simple as installing rogue devices, password spray attack, default passwords being broken, Tomcat, Jenkins, and co, especially the administrator accounts. Let's take a use case. When a user walks into the organization, he or she is assigned a laptop, and who creates those user IDs, who goes into the laptop, installs a specific software? It's the admin account, or it's a high privileged account. But unfortunately, It's the same username and password that's being used across all of those machines. Just imagine if I can sniff those passwords. It's an easy gateway because that account has been provisioned in all of the computers, and it still has. Check it out. In one of your domain-based machines, your administrator will have a supreme account, and through that, the provision of the respective account is being created. What could he or she access? What applications he or she access? All are installed. So this is exactly where attackers are after. And still many people rely and fall on Active Directory password controls and still leaning towards a weaker policy protocol. So default passwords are one of the easiest way to steal user credentials. Missing patches. When I say missing patches, net logon or zero logon vulnerability. Vivin will share all of these collaterals to you all, and he will give you an amazing blog as well, where you can find out how net logon and zero logon could hold your organization vulnerable. Clear text passwords on file share, vulnerable web applications. I've got use cases that will follow in my talk. Kerber roasting, especially your service accounts. When you go into services.msc, you go click, open up a service, properties, log on to. It could be a user account, which many people still use. There are managed service accounts. There are user accounts which are being configured as a service. And if their passwords have been configured, and we generally don't change their password because the application will break. And this is exactly where Kerber roasting happens. And social engineering, phishing attack, MITM, which is man in the middle attack, vulnerable software versions. Any of your software that you install might have a vulnerable spot. All of these use cases are being addressed in my talk today, and I hope this comes useful to you all right? And the top concerns for CEOs across the globe as we speak in 2020, it was the cyber threat was at a 33% on the number 4th of a CEO. And right now in 2021, it is at number 2, cyber threats at a rising 47%. So that clearly tells you that cyber attacks are taking the world by storm. And what's in store for you all, if you are dealing with IT security, you have to get it right all the time. But for the attackers, they just have to get it right once. So this is exactly where the job of an IT security admin or an administrator is extremely difficult, because we have to pin down even the smallest of loopholes. And at point of time, the IT security team is understaffed, and there's a lot on our plate. And that's exactly why you need solutions to act like virtual cameras to tell you what's happening in your ecosystem. All right. So the agenda that I have for you all is understanding the attack surface, how machine learning and artificial intelligence can detect internal and external attacks, how to secure your infrastructure and the need for security orchestration, automation, response, and the importance of data security and the need for data leak prevention. And I'm going to point you to some resource. I'm not going to hang you out high and dry. I'm going to give you some resources where you can go back, understand how attacks happen. It's a simulation-based resource. I will share that in the VN, right? So due course, if you have any questions, please have them put on the Q&A window, and we will address them at the earliest. But no questions will be unanswered. That's a promise from us, and we will get back to you at the earliest. All right, so please keep your questions coming so that we can answer them. So I've not been to the office for about 15 months straight. That's the longest I've stayed grounded. And just to relate the office experience, I'm going to bring in few characters that I work with. We all work with. Steve, Noah, John, Rick. Steve is a marketer. Noah is an administrator. John is from sales. Rick is a developer. Why am I bringing these people onto this forum today? Is I miss them, yes. And they are amazing at their work. Steve is a marketer. He's hero to the masses, content king, and a very melodramatic person. Noah, the administrator, is stern yet understanding, is a problem solver, and organizations cannot function without people like Noah. John from sales is a person who loves selling ice to the Eskimo, loves to talk and think. Rick is a person who's a silent warrior, speak when spoken to character, loves beanbag and pizza. But my good colleagues, my friends, and many other people that I've not invited today to this talk could also be posing a risk. So let's break things down. What do I mean? Let's understand this better. Steve, the marketer, has logged into source code repository late last night and downloaded data. Noah, the administrator, has downloaded multiple files in the AM, multiple files in the PM, going unnoticed. John from sales, after normal work hours, logged into 10 machines at the same time and installed an application on all of these machines. Rick, the developer, has been accessing the internal payroll database for the last few weeks. Action item 1. My first question to you all. You can answer it on the Q&A or on the chat, or please note them down and ensure that you have answers ensure you have answers, because that's very, very important. Are you monitoring user behavior? Now, many administrators during the pandemic reached out to me saying they have the corporate device and they hardly log on to the domain. So how can we track what he or she is doing? That is a brilliant question, because generally when a user connects to the domain, then Active Directory does feed information. But what happens if he or she does not even log on to the domain? How can you track what's happening? So that's exactly where a SIEM solution from ManageEngine, of course, we have Log360, can install agents on your endpoints and can transfer data to your machines that are hosted on your environment, and it can read user behavior. But this is just not the final solution. This is just the start of my talk. The question to you all is, are you monitoring user behavior? And for why should you monitor user behavior? Right now, 15 months, not entered my organization, I could be possibly installing any particular software or any exe, or I could be doing anything malicious with my laptop, right? The point I'm driving home is being IT security admin is difficult, and the only way you can get your hands on and be in tune with what's happening is understanding what's happening around us. And especially when attacks happen, the top management only wants to talk to the administrators, and that's the only time probably they remember us to pin us down. So that's exactly why I'm telling you all to stay protected. Get real-time information, get to know anomalies, get to know what a user is doing, which file is he or she accessing, when did she log in, when did she log off, what is she doing with the laptop. So this is exactly what we are after. Again, use case 1, are you monitoring user behavior? Now, moving on, I am going to go ahead into the hawk eye view of IT security, and my point of talk will be on how users are the connecting points between platforms and attacks. You can have any platform. You can have endpoint, workgroup, on-premise infrastructure, cloud applications, data storage, entire network, peripheral devices. How are users paying where for any specific attack? All right. So what's happening in the current organizational ecosystem? Yes, they all have silos. They have many solutions, but none of them talk to each other. So the problem here is you might have a separate solution for intrusion prevention. You might have endpoint security. You might have service logs. You might have asset management system, but none of these by themselves can tell you what's happening in your infrastructure. So that's exactly why you need a SIEM solution to know what's happening, to connect the dots, to go do forensics, to bring back logs again from the past, to read what's happened or what was happening in the past. So this is why a SIEM solution should be the heart of your cybersecurity strategy, right? So this is what is happening. Many organizations are still on the lookout or considering or trying to consider a SIEM solution, but my talk here begins now. Attacks and their types. There are many forms of attack, but I've classified them into 2 broader spectrum, internal and external. When I say internal, it could be a user with privilege or a user with no privilege. External, it could be a ransomware attack. It could be a brute force attack. It could be a backdoor entry, any form of attack. your SIM solution must be sniffing what's happening. So on that note, let me go into my VM. This is my domain controller. Let me quickly log in. I'm logged in as Tim. So I want you to follow what's happening as well. So let me minimize the product. Go in, and I will show you. I'm going to call 2 users to the party right now. Right click, find Tim. Tim is a privileged user. When I say a privileged user, Tim is a part of domain admin. Action item 2, my second question. Are you monitoring your privileged user behavior? Do you know who they are? Do you know who are your privileged users? This is my use case 2 or action item 2. I hope you all have answers for that, but let's get going. So what can Tim do? And 2 is, and what could Harish be doing? Harish is a domain user with absolutely 0 privilege. I will show you the collateral which Microsoft wants everybody to read, how to administer Active Directory in the least permission given way. And that's how I have administered Harish. He's not a part of any specific group. He's just a part of domain user. When Harish got provisioned in Active Directory, he belonged, he gets into this domain users by default. Of course, basics, everybody knows this. So what can Harish do? So right now, 2 experiments. Tim, how can Tim crack open my organization? How can Harish crack open my organization? So let me quickly open up command prompt. And Tim does not even need Active Directory users and computers, but although he's entitled to use it, but what Tim is going to do is going to perform DS query user -inactive for the past 15 days. So what this does, the beautiful command prompt gives me all of the users who've been inactive for the past 15 days. There's an administrator account as well, been inactive for the past 15 days. So what does this tell me? Tim reads what's happening in Active Directory, and DS query is basically talking to my domain controller. I will give you details about DS query as well, but since he's so privileged, he can do almost anything that he wants just from command prompt. He does not even need to go about doing anything in Active Directory users and computers. So what happens here is disable. And when I disable, all of these users will be disabled. So the point I'm driving across is Tim, who's a privileged user, has chosen a command prompt to be his UI for both reporting, management, and this is just not only for users. This is for groups, contacts, computers. I can report, I can run management operation on. Action item 3, are you monitoring whitelisted application behavior? So here's some information for DS query. Not everybody can perform it, but I opened up the experiment saying Tim is a privileged user. So on any machine that you have installed Active Directory domain services, get the opportunity to play around with DS query. Are you tracking it? That's my action item 3. I hope you all are noting down the action items because there is a big use case following the next action item that I have. And I want you all to please stay tuned because that is a revile ransomware. So I will be talking about that and how the next simulation that I'm about to perform is the gateway of the attack. So this is my action item 3. And let me go into Harish, who is a domain user, and how can he crack open any organization. But Harish is going to open up PowerShell, not command prompt. And he has decided to take things under control, get to know what's happening in his organization, what privilege he has. So I will run it for you all. Who am I? And then get to know what privilege he has as a user. And the reason why I'm still doing this is not many organizations are taking PowerShell seriously. And what he's about to do is find out who his privileged users are. and he gets to know everything a part of domain admins, what privilege he or she has, and then he goes about getting to know privileged resources like command prompt, and then he can go about doing password spray attack. Like, I can quickly demonstrate it, but if you've seen it in the past, are you monitoring PowerShell based activity? So I can quickly go ahead. Let me show you how simple it is to crack open an organization. And all I need to do is, right? But PowerShell throws an error, but the same PowerShell, you can tell it, you know what, I do have certain rights, right? So I could go about doing anything that I want. The same command which I'd used before can be done. Right? Go about doing what I need, password, and I'm going to bring in the world's most difficult password, which is password at 123. The yellow lines are reading from my group policy object. When I press yes, the green is success, username and password. But right here, when we look at Belgium, if I log in as Belgium right now, how many of you will call it a threat, or how many of you will call it a legitimate login? That's my use case 4, which does tie along with my use case 3. Are you monitoring whitelisted applications? And I'm going to do a detailed talk, or I have detailed collaterals to drive home the message on why PowerShell needs to be understood really well. And PowerShell can be weaponized easily, because when I log in as Belgium, let's take one step back, go into Active Directory users and computers, find, search for Belgium, and you will be alarmed as to what privilege Belgium has. Belgium is a part of domain users and a part of help desk group, but let's click on help desk group, member of domain admin. So right now, if anybody logs in as Belgium, that is a huge threat. Nested group privilege has spoiled my domain. I've not looked into this, and plus a user has cracked open my organization. And how can ManageEngine help is, let me go back. Our solution is real time. I go back into domain settings, just press now. Of course, you get the opportunity to run it real time, but I've kept it to every 5 minutes because this is a small box. I've not been to the office, just to save space. Get into server audit. Everything that a user does is under radar. So process tracking, new process created, search for DS query. Since this is an experiment, I'm showing it to you, but if you have AD Audit Plus in place, it will shoot out emails real time. It will tell you date and time, who did it, from where, what was done, what is the consequence, and what elevation was used. Everything will be decoded. You would get an email, and based on that email, you can write your own scripts or call scripts to take down action. So if Harish had done, or Tim has done a DS query, you can disable that user. If Harish has done a PowerShell script or a password spray attack, you can disable that user instantaneously. Go talk to the help desk tool. So you can write your own script and customize what you need. So let's see what PowerShell auditing is all about. So script log logging, look at what is happening. Harish, what has he done? You can click on details. Everything has been taken care of. Whatever Harish has ever done using PowerShell is being documented. This is just not only on domain controller or endpoints. This is on any machine that you can install AD Audit Plus, and it will look into domain controllers, file servers, member servers, workstations. PowerShell needs to be understood really well. So for instance, let's go back. Process tracking, script log logging. What has Harish done with date and time? Can you read this for me? Domain password spray attack has been performed by Harish. And when you click on the details, it will tell you what script was run. So what does AD Audit Plus do? It has sniffed it. It has understood this has happened. And from there, you can get into the alerts, build your own alert, or use the templates that we have, give it a name, choose what you need. choose from here. You can go choose all, or you can search. This is exactly what I want you all to do. So this will tell you PowerShell audit, whatever has been done, filter, and look at the customization allowed here. You can go into username, even type. This is exactly what makes AD Audit Plus magical. Click on add. You can choose the specific user, or you can even challenge Active Directory through an LDAP query. So it's picking the information from the security logs, but more information on PowerShell is you need to enable PowerShell auditing, and by default, it is not captured. So that's why you need to understand PowerShell better. And AD Audit Plus gives you two tangential operations. One is understanding who did what, and at the same time you can query users in AD with a specific syntax just to be sure that if that user does it, you want to be notified. So this is whitelisted application, and the point I wanted to drive home is, since we are talking about ransomware attacks and how PowerShell is paying the way, see what's happening here. So let me go one step further. This is a ransomware attack, which is hitting 1,000+ companies in the MSP supply chain attack. But within a short span of time, this will propagate. And what I'm about to say is this will take you by storm. PowerShell command to execute the reviled ransomware. And this is paying as a gateway to understand this specific reviled ransomware, which is basically evil ransomware. So that's what they have coined this for. But there is a lot of steps that needs to be understood. For instance, the event IDs, how to go about building a correlation in case if this has happened. So this is why a SIM solution will tell you what's happening. So for instance, this is log 360. Let me quickly build a correlation for a ransomware attack. If you know the process or the steps involved, for instance, that article does tell you the steps that are mandatorily involved. So that's event log analyzer. You can go click on it. Let me call that separately just to save time. And you've got something called correlation, which addresses logs from your entire network. It's just not only Windows based, approximately 600+ log sources. You can click on correlation, go search for ransomware, and it will tell you what is happening. Ragnar Locker ransomware, mail to coronavirus, ransomware detection. We've got custom templates ready, or you can build your very own template. Example, go click on manage rules, create correlation rule. You can just drag and drop. This is your PAN network. Look at all these options that is available. So if you have a customized requirement, you can reach out to me or Vivin, and we will be more than happy to hand walk you or walk the lines with you to build a cohesive template and see how better you can understand what's happening. Because there are many possibilities of a ransomware attack. PowerShell entry, going and disabling antivirus, all of this is done through PowerShell. And 3, it goes ahead and changes registry entry. 4, it goes ahead and starts encrypting files. 5, it starts throwing error messages, trying to wipe out logs. So all of these needs to be understood really well. And that's exactly why all of your logs needs to be put under a SIM. And that SIM needs to look into any and every log source. Even your custom format needs to be looked into. And that is why I have been stressing on 4 use cases at the moment. And R-Evil ransomware, many people call it Revile, or I call it R-Evil, is taking the world by storm right now. There are patterns. Please start reading about it. And the confirmation is still yet to be out. And it is being done through Kaseya, which is an endpoint management tool. And of course, that is being affected. And that is what this specific article gives me information about and steps to go about tracking them. And I hope you all take this very seriously in understanding how attacks could surface. And of course, the gateway, though, was PowerShell. It all happened through a simple click of an email. So let's get going. into understanding how to better administer your Active Directory and Azure as well. I've got some recommendations coming your way, as I promised. For your on-premise AD, follow Microsoft best practices for Active Directory. The link will take you to the collateral I promised. Limit administrative rights on workstations and restrict access to PowerShell. One of the collaterals that we have put together. Please consume it and pass it to your team. Restricting access to critical resources such as domain controller, file servers, and member servers. Understanding vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, especially around your domain joined machines, even if it's work group. Any machine that is missing patches, you have to understand it is vulnerable. And understand system configurations and system defaults and the importance of endpoint when it comes to cybersecurity. And moving on into Azure Active Directory, restrict access to administration portal, restrict access to Azure portal through conditional access, deploy Azure MFA to all end users, protect all Azure AD Connect server if you have many, eliminate security threats by following Secure Score, and deploy privileged identity management. But the problem in Azure AD is all of the recommendations that I've mentioned is a part of the premium licensing. It is not for free. But if you are a free user of Azure Active Directory, you get few things like security defaults, you get MFA, which can only be done through Microsoft Authenticator. So you do get a bit, but that's a lot better compared to on-prem AD. But if all of this being said, why is it so difficult to maintain IT security? Why isn't it simple? Let's break it down. Why is native auditing a big problem or not solving what you need? So here's an example. Large volume of logon events at random times, right? Crazy amount of people doing a lot of activities. How can you be sure if this is an attack or not? Contextual filter is missing. For example, country-based logon, domain controller or member server or logons outside business hours are missing. Hybrid environments, cloud application logons must be monitored too, but not many actually monitor. They've got separate solutions. And if you love looking into logs, please go ahead and look at the AWS logs or look at the Office 365 logs or Azure logs. It will definitely drive you crazy. And monitoring user logon parameters along with critical reports like top websites can also help determine employee productivity. So this is the basic problem when it comes to logging, when it comes to understanding what's happening in your organization. There's tons and tons of event IDs. How can you be sure that this is taking part to an attack? Exactly the need of a SIEM solution. All right. First use case, VPN Remote Access. Since we're all working from home, still work needs to be done. And how are they touching the domain through VPN access? And you have to track who's coming in, how many times success, how many times failure. In case if it's a failure, past success, what happened, everything needs to be documented. So there are 3 ways we can track remote access: user logon activity, get to know the account logon category type, if it's 10 or 3, radius logon activity. When I say radius logon, if it's an NPS server, if it's a Microsoft ecosystem that you trust. Of course, radius logon gateway gives you more policies that can be administered, like which user to give access, which IP address to be let in, more like a firewall, instead of just giving everybody access. Remote gateway activity, it is a server hosted online, but of course encrypted, and gives you the additional policies as well. So all of this needs to be tracked, especially your RDP as well. So what does AD Audit Plus do for you? Right from the minute anybody logs in to their machine, to the domain, everything is tracked. Go ahead, local log on, log off, and it will tell you radius logon failure, radius logon success, history, remote desktop gateway, terminated user sessions, logon activity, duration, everything is tracked. Even the lock screen, the unlock, everything is tracked. And of course, I will be touching the analytics piece, as Vivin mentioned, in just few minutes, where I will tell you the tool will raise an anomaly if an admin account has been dormant for a long time, if Harish has logged into 10 critical machines at the same time, everything is automatically done through machine learning. So stay around for that specific piece, because that will tie down to my first use case, user behavior monitoring, right? So this is the VPN. This is for remote desktop gateway. But if you trust any other VPN like Cisco, Fortinet, we have answers for that as well. Let me go ahead into my demo version, go into reports, and you can choose what you need. Go ahead, Cisco, SonicWall, Fortinet, Juniper, Meraki, Sophos, Palo Alto, WatchGuard, everything is tracked. So do not shy away from putting your logs into the solution and see what it can do for you. The job of a SIEM solution is to understand patterns, archive events, connect the dots, raise anomalies, take action, and ensure that the system predicts what's happening in your ecosystem as well. All right. So let's get going. This is use case 1 in terms of how to better administer or monitor your infrastructure. Start with the basic surveying, which is called the Domain Recon, where Harish went in and understood what was happening in his ecosystem through PowerShell. And all he did was write LDAP queries, and the domain controller loved it because all it wants is queries. And through queries, the LDAP, the domain controller fetched the answers, passed it back to Harry or Harish, and gave them the information. So please ensure if anybody is doing any LDAP-based queries, or if they are attacking using shell command prompt, your SIEM solution must document that for you, all right? And use case 3, in terms of other important activities to be tracked, group policy changes, file integrity monitoring with filters added, excluding internal subnet. So the point I'm driving here is how customizable is the solution. Example, many users might be calling you for account unlocks. Have you paid attention to why, or before they call, understand the possibility of why an account is getting locked out? That's one of the reasons why AD Audit Plus has been widely recognized, because it is actually helping the administrator on understanding why an account is getting locked out in the first place. Go ahead, click on details, and you get about 10 plus components to basically tell you why an account is getting locked out. Windows services, scheduled tasks, network drive mappings, log on sessions, COM objects, process list, applications, OWA, active sync. Go ahead and detailed analysis on the possible reason why an account is getting locked out. This is possible with AD Audit Plus. This is just not only for account lockouts. We have even done it for login failures as well. Good look into the same details. Though both might seem familiar or might be walking the same path, it is different. Login failure is the first step. Account lockout is the ultimate step. So we will be able to disguise and tell you what's happening in your infrastructure. When a user logs in to all the way to log off, what is he or she doing? Example, another attack that could possibly be happening. Go into Active Directory users and computers, minimize this, system, admin SD holder. Anybody on the session today, do you know what this folder holds? Can you please poke your answer on the chat just to keep it interactive? Because if it was a live session, I could get to see your answers or get to see you speak as well. But unfortunately, this is a virtual seminar. So just please, if you do not know the answer, don't worry about it. You can get to know now, and you can read a lot as well about this. This specific folder contains all of your privileged users, domain admins. So what I'm going to do is CEO, and I'm going to go do next, create, delete accounts, modify group membership, next, and finish. So the point, 2 specific problems here. One is there is no undo button, or there is no reporting tab here, which can tell me what's happening in this specific folder or who gave that specific access. Of course, if you think a bit more, there is an answer called effective access. but that will not help you out. But see what AD Audit Plus can do. Go ahead, get into domain settings. You can keep it real time. Get into permissions, OU permission changes, container permission changes, admin SD holder, date and time, who did the change, and what was changed. Everything is tracked. And this is the customizable part that I'm talking about. If this should have never happened, but it has just taken effect in your organization, the solution will take action. Example, you can go build your own alerts, and you can execute scripts. You can invoke your very own script, and the script is at your mercy. You can write whatever you need, and the tool will invoke it and pass that information on to the next pedestal. All right. So this is the customization part, which I wanted to talk about. But there's a lot more. You've got ADFS auditing. You've got disabled user logon attempt, password never expire enabled, logon failures for admin users. This is the customization part that I wanted you all to understand, right? And shifting gears into Azure, a couple of points, and then into data storage, and last but not the least, into your network. And another 10, 15 minutes, I should have been giving you a complete cohesive answer or a holistic picture of the importance of a SIEM solution. If you use Azure, there are a lot of good points. Under user settings, you can find out few things which needs your attention. You can ensure that not every user can access this admin page that I have on screen, but at the same time, let me go back, open up my screen again, pull up Azure. Let me quickly log in. And what this tells me is when I go into the admin portal, I can disable it from a common man. I can disable it. I can only let the administrator use it. And when you hover over the information icon, there is something called, but does not restrict access using PowerShell or another client such as Visual Studio. So what I'm about to do is open up Shell again, but this time a tad different. I want to connect to Azure AD through Shell activity. My action item 5. Are you documenting how a user is logging onto your cloud infrastructure, especially Azure? Because this is the second most widely adopted infrastructure right after on-premise AD. And this is from Microsoft as well. So by default, when you go into shell-based login activity, you cannot audit them. And that's exactly why I brought this use case as well. All of the recommendations that Microsoft make is amazing, no doubt, but there are small loopholes that can go unnoticed. And that's why I wanted to raise this. So what can AD Audit Plus do is on your hybrid infrastructure, we will let you know how a user logged in from where and what was the application used. Was it through a browser? Was it through PowerShell? Was it through Azure portal? Was it through a graph? Was it through Office 365 Compliance Center? AD Audit Plus looks into all of this in a nutshell. So this is one of the recommendations, but a lot more recommendations I can make for your Azure. But since we are pressed for time, I'll keep it to these two. But if you are interested, Azure is something that you're looking after. Again, Vivin or me will definitely guide you out. So any user who is a device administrator by default becomes a local admin for all Azure AD joint devices. And if you search for this role in roles and administrator menu, you will not find it because there is a specific path, device settings, where you will find the option additional local administrator on Azure AD joint devices. And another information is when this person adds a Windows 10 to Azure AD or any machine to Azure AD, they become a part of the local admin. And of course, they become a part, and global admin is a part of the local admin group as well. So please rethink what is required. I'm not saying they are bad. I'm just requesting you all to start understanding the nested membership, and if required, get to know who is doing what. Your SIEM solution must let you know what's happening in your infrastructure, which user was added, which machine was added. all of this should be a part of your SIM strategy, right? Shifting gears into data storage, a bigger problem, because data theft is happening right now. Data is the new age gold and a new age money rather. So you have to track file servers for document changes, audit EMC, NetApp, Windows cluster, file servers, work group machines, Synology, Huawei. You've got a lot more when we deal with data. OneDrive, because people these days just want to copy, paste, or manipulate data and go about deleting so that nobody gets hold of it. Because there's always two ways of looking at a coin. The collaboration piece is exciting. That's one way of looking at it. But the other side is when you share too many things to many people, they start taking advantage and they start taking out data. And monitor Windows file server failover clusters for change based on users, files, and servers. And when we deal with data, you first have to classify information, get to know where your data is, what is it doing, and from there, who's doing the damage, and stale data, rot data, where is it sitting? So this is where Log 360 comes in with another component, which is Data Security Plus, and it can get you answers for risk analysis. You can classify information. This is real time, and it will classify information where it's sitting. It will tell you risk score and what you need to do. So go ahead, look at what's happening. It will tell you the policies that I'm violating, GDPR, risk score, domain admin access, permissions for that specific folder. Everything is being given here. So this solution will tell you ownership analysis. It will set alerts. It will give you a file server view, who's got actual permissions, NTFS and share permissions. Everything is taken care from this specific tool. But this does not stop there. If you copy paste content, if you delete content, if you go ahead and plug your USB or a thumb drive, or try to take the data to your Outlook web access client, or go take it to the cloud, everything is tracked. And of course, you can block it as well. You can stop things from happening as well. So that's exactly where you've got cloud protection, where you can block users from visiting harmful dark sections of the web, control user activities across millions of harmful websites, to gain in-depth visibility into your organization's cloud service usage, audit web traffic, and track, analyze which of your enterprise resources are uploaded to the cloud. So this is for your Windows, OneDrive infrastructure, but we are adding more to data security. But AD Audit Plus can look into a lot more. When I say lot more, you've got, let me go into file servers, file audit. You've got NetApp, EMC, Isilon, EMC server, Synology. We've recently added Huawei as well. Huawei, I'm pronouncing it right. And that can also be audited, just like where you store your data. All right. So that is important, because data is why ransomware attacks get started in the first place. So if you are under attack, the solution will tell you under file audit, you get alerts if your organization was subject to a ransomware attack, from which machine you have clicked, what is the consequence. This is an agent-based solution. So you get real-time information about an attack when a person clicks on something and then the outbreak happens. Data Security Plus can help you understand what's happening. This is a part of Log 360 as well. All right. And coming to the V end of understanding your network behavior, there's a lot that I can talk about. Unnecessary rules, especially dealing with your firewall. This is, if you're trusting Windows Defender, you can go into the control panel, security system, Windows Defender firewall, and set apps and ports allowed to communicate, and adopt the strategy of least privilege, and it forces control over entire network, source IP address, destination IP address, destination port, protocol of the traffic. And there are few bad commands that we generally overlook, like permit TCP, any web server 3389 gives RTP access to web server. I will give you all a link on the same deck and go into that specific collateral, and that gives you a good understanding about how to better have a firewall rules, what to do, what not to do. And that was a good read. And that's exactly why I'm sharing this with you all. Example, permit IP any, if any means allow all traffic from any source on any port to any destination. Example, what you need to do is also being given here. So give this a good read. And the last recommendation before I give it back to Prodata is giving you back answers. User behavior analytics across your infrastructure for user activity, drawing baselines, flagging deviations, getting to know risk anomalies, and analytics, which is risk assessment and anomalies, is a part of AD Audit Plus for Windows-based, domain controller-based, or file server-based. But if your infrastructure is more than beyond Windows, then Log360 has Log360 UEBA, which reads user behavior across your infrastructure. That is cloud applications, on-premise devices, your databases, firewalls, switches, whatever changes are being done, it will let you know that this user has done it. It will give you a risk score, their behavior, what happened, everything is documented on UEBA. And just to do a quick summary about Log360, Log360 is ManageEngine's integrated SIEM solution, and it comes in with different modules. But if you are looking out for a SIEM, then Log360 is available for a free download and trial for a few days, for 30 days. And we will be more than happy to do a proof of concept as well. So you can get to know what's happening. And if you know which module you're looking out for, you can only purchase what you need. This is not buying everything and only using a selective few. If you know what you want, we can even customize that specific requirement. So let me go into Log360 UEBA, and this is how the tool will look to the eyes across your entity. It will give you risk score. It will predict user behavior as well, what he or she is doing, and based on the baselines created, it will tell you what's going to happen as well. Recent alerts, anomaly trends, top 10 anomalous activities, go into users. Which user has the highest risk score? You can click on it and it will tell you the average, the peak risk score, how did it happen with date and time. Everything is documented for your entire ecosystem. All right. And the last thing is right here. User behavior analytics is what I spoke, and Log360 is the integrated SIEM that I spoke about. And this is, I know if you've given us about more than 2 hours with us, we really appreciate that. But if you're really interested in understanding more use cases, we are available over a chat or a call, or just drop us an email and we will work it out on the best convenient time. And as I promised, new resource. What could this resource be to you all is the various tactics that threat actors use to intrude and persist inside a network. And these are simulations with different techniques that threat actors use to compromise your network security. And we've also built defense strategy to protect your organization. So with that being said, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your patience and the strength that you've shown in being a part of this talk. My name is Harish, and the last time I will give you my email before I pass it to my partners, harry@manageengine.com, the easiest way you can get hold of us. So it was a pleasure talking to you all. I hope that the content was informative. And right now we just got a few polls coming your way. Karthik will be giving you the first poll. Please allow us to help you better. if you are currently evaluating any solutions, please choose it, and we will ensure that the right help reaches you at the right time. Just a couple of more seconds and one more poll is what Karthik is after. And once this is done, please do let us know the feedback as well, because we believe there's always room for improvement, and we wanted to seek your feedback as well. So that is something Karthik will be sharing in just a few seconds. It should be up on your screen. Yes, fantastic. Thank you, Karthik, for that. And post this, I will pass it to our partners. And of course, if you have any questions, I will be addressing them right now. So thank you very much for your time, and please keep well. And over to you, Roni.
Okay, thank you, Harish, and thank you, Vivin, Karthik, also for the webinar. Baiklah, Bapak Ibu sekalian, terima kasih sudah mengikuti acara webinar ini dari awal sampai akhir. Sekarang kita akan ikuti sedikit kuis kecil yang mengenai materi webinar kita pada siang sampai sore hari ini. Share screen dulu. Baik, silahkan login ke menti.com, kemudian masukkan nomor kode yang ada di atas. (36537099) masuk ke menti.com, nanti masukkan kode 36537099. Baik, nanti kita pertanyaannya akan seputar kuis kita pada siang hari ini. Kita akan ambil 3 terbaik, jadi nilai itu akan dihitung berdasarkan ketepatan dan kecepatan Anda dalam menjawab pertanyaan. Pertanyaan tidak akan susah-susah, karena gampang saja mengenai materi kita pada siang hari ini. Dari 39 orang. Ada 42 orang, kita tunggu, kita kasih waktu 1 menit agar bisa join. Nanti setelah kuis ini selesai akan ada 3 pemenang, akan ada notifikasi menang juga di layar Bapak Ibu sekalian. Nanti kalau sudah, nanti bisa screenshot atau capture screen layar HP Anda atau browser Anda. Nanti bisa di email ke sales@prodata.co.id. Nanti tim kami akan menghubungi Anda untuk proses voucher OVO-nya. Baik, sudah ada 50 orang. Kita tunggu Kita mulai persis jam 16 tepat waktu laptop saya. Sudah join. Akses ke menti.com, kemudian masukkan 36537099. Baik, kita mulai ya, Bapak Ibu sekalian ya. Kita mulai. Nah kan, yang dinilai adalah yang paling tepat dan paling cepat. Kombinasi keduanya. Prodata akan seringkali berkolaborasi dengan prinsipal untuk melakukan webinar-webinar seperti ini. Biasanya kami lakukan itu bisa per 2 minggu. Nanti jangan lupa, nanti kalau misalnya kami akan coba informasikan mengenai webinar selanjutnya. Harapkan Bapak Ibu sekalian bisa bergabung bersama kita. Baik, pertanyaan pertama itu yang paling cepat adalah Pak Michael, diikuti Pak Ramadhani dan Pak Henry. Kita lanjut ke pertanyaan nomor 2, kesempatan masih banyak, ada 6 pertanyaan nanti untuk quiz kita kali ini. Waduh, ini rekor, semuanya benar. Coba pertanyaan kita kali ini, luar biasa. Tapi siapakah yang paling cepat? Pak Ramadhani masih yang paling cepat. Tapi masih peringkat pertama masih di Pak Michael. Kita lanjut ke pertanyaan nomor 3. Baik, ada 49 orang yang menjawab dengan benar dan 3 orang yang menjawab dengan salah. Bapak Michael masih buat di puncak klasemen sementara. Lanjut ke pertanyaan keempat. Oke, Pak Ramadhani ada di tingkat pertama, Pak Michael seperti tadi ada kesalahan dalam menjawab mungkin sehingga tidak ada di kelas lagi. Oke, masih ada pertanyaan, 2 pertanyaan lagi. Baik, pertanyaan terakhir ini berhubungan dengan modul-modul yang ada di ManageEngine karena mengenai materi kita hari ini. Kalau tadi menyimak tadi pemaparan saya di 5 menit awal, mungkin bisa menjawab pertanyaan ini. Pertanyaan terakhir untuk kuis kita di hari ini. Jangan lupa untuk pemenang pertama, kedua, dan ketiga untuk screenshot layarnya dan kirim email ke sales@prodata.co.id. Nanti tim kami akan segera menghubungi Bapak. Baik, siapakah pemenangnya? 3 besarnya. Ya, masih dipegang oleh Pak Ramadhani, Pak Ruli, dan Pak Yusuf. Pak Ramadhani, Pak Yuli, dan Pak Yusuf, selamat kepada Pak Ramadhani, kepada Pak Ruli, dan juga Pak Yusuf. Mohon capture screen layar Anda, kemudian kirimkan ke email ke sales@prodata.co.id. Nanti tim kami akan segera menghubungi Bapak sekalian. Terima kasih atas partisipasinya. Okay, the quiz is over. Back to you, Kartik. I think. Okay, baik. Terima kasih. Thank you for our ManageEngine team that already provide for our webinar for this for today. Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Vivin, and thank you, Kartik, for your attention. Terima kasih juga kepada seluruh peserta webinar kita pada siang dan sore hari ini. Semoga apa yang kami berikan pada sore hari ini bisa bermanfaat untuk Bapak Ibu sekalian. Jika ada kesalahan atau salah kata, kami mohon maaf, baik yang sengaja atau tidak sengaja, dan mengharapkan kehadiran Bapak Ibu sekalian lagi untuk hadir di webinar kami yang selanjutnya. Stay safe, tetap jaga protokol kesehatannya. Salam untuk keluarga semua di rumah, salam sehat selalu. Terima kasih, selamat sore.